Common Council Executive Committee to order on January 5th, 2021. Lisa, will you call the roll?
Sure. Alder Carter.
Present.
Alder Abbas.
Present.
Alder Harrington McKinney.
I'm present.
Alder Skidmore.
Here.
Alder Hennick. Alder Hennick.
Present.
Alder Tierney.
Present.
Alder Campbell is excused. Alder Bedar.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And Stefan, will you read the guidelines?
Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members of the committee, if you're able, please keep your video activated for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you're speaking. In this meeting, committee members and staff are able to mute and unmute themselves. Please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking to avoid background noise. Please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Because of the latest Zoom update, you may not be able to see or access your raise hand feature. In that instance, we're just going to have to use the old school hand in the camera to raise your hand. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. And President Carter, the floor is yours.
Thank you. At this time, we will have approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
May I get a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. And can I record it? Well, first of all, I should ask if there are any corrections or revisions. I see not. I will record a unanimous vote unless I see someone's hand waving in the camera. There are no hands waving, so therefore I'm going to approve the minutes for November 24th, and then we will move on to the minutes for December 1st. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any revisions or corrections? I would like to record a unanimous vote unless I see hands waving in the camera. I see none. I will record a unanimous vote for approval of the December 1st, 2020 minutes. Thank you. Stefan, we will go to public comment.
Yes, so it looks like we do have a registrant for items 6 and items 7. Item 6 is not wishing to speak and is registered neither support nor oppose. Item 7, John Rothschild, is registered opposed and is available to answer questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Rothschild at this time, or we can wait until we get to item 7? Okay, we will go on to item 4, disclosures and recusals. I see no disclosures or recusals, and then we'll go to action item. We'll go to item 5, Register 63557. And I will have on this one, there was some confusion, so I'll have Attorney Haas speak to this. Is Attorney Haas on? Or before Attorney Haas, Alder Furman, do you want to speak or?
I'm okay with Attorney Haas clarifying whatever he was going to clarify, but then I just have some questions about the not the legal questions. I understand what happened there, but I can wait for Attorney Haas to explain what you wanted him to explain. I just wanted to make sure I got in line to be able to ask some questions about this.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. President Carter, are you referring to the President's authority to appoint this work group?
Yes, there was some confusion initially, and then there was a clarification. I don't know if everyone got that, and I just wanted that to be discussed.
Sure, thank you. I think initially we thought, or the assumption had been that the ordinance requires the president to obtain CCEC approval to appoint a work group, and that those under that ordinance, I believe is 2.205, the work group would be limited to 2 to 3 alders. It was brought to my attention that there's a separate ordinance, 33.01 sub 4, I believe, which allows for an alternative process for the president to appoint a committee, a subunit, including a committee or work group. And work groups are included in the definition of committee in that ordinance. And that ordinance allows the mayor or the president to create a subunit, including a committee or work group, by issuing an order. And it has been done in the past by prior presidents. And so I advised President Carter that this was an option, and that creation of such a work group did not require approval of the CCEC, and it was not limited to the 2 to 3 alders that is mentioned in Chapter 2. So I think after advising her of that, President Carter wanted to still keep this item on the agenda to simply advise the CCEC of the creation of the work group and what the charge was for it and who the members of the work group are.
Thank you. Alder Furman.
Thank you, Council President. I'm hoping to get some clarification. I'll be honest, when I saw the creation of this committee, I was a little confused, and I am still confused. So hoping we can get some clarification this evening. We had a special CCEC meeting. I believe it was a special CCEC meeting, but we had a long discussion about the chief of staff position. And it was my understanding from that there was going to be either another CCEC meeting, but there was strong talk of a committee of the whole meeting. And so, first I'd like to get an understanding of that. And then my question kind of related to that is I don't know how membership was picked on this, but I was frankly surprised not to see anybody that was involved in TFOGs or that's on the TFOGs implementation committee on this committee. And I just wanted to try to get a better understanding of how the membership was decided on, and where we are in the process when it comes to committee of the whole, as well as even another CCEC meeting about this.
Yes, so the committee of the whole meeting is scheduled, and we could have another one, but the committee of the whole meeting is scheduled for January 28th. I believe it's 6:30, but Lisa knows and can chime in. What this work group is working on simply is the PD for this position. As you recall, on the 24th, that the Harper stated that it would take 3 to 4 months to actually hire someone, but 3 to 4 months in the process, I guess, is what I really want to say. This group is just working on the PD. We are still having the larger group to talk about the survey. I think one of the things, if I recall, I don't have it up and I'm looking at one computer, but if I recall, it was the organizational development division of HR that was going to facilitate the committee of the whole meeting. And if I remember correctly, the TFOG had implementation group had recommendations for the council office, whether it's staff or in general. So those are the things that were going to be discussed on the 28th. And I think that is still going forward. But we can talk about, since you're the chair, we can talk about that later.
Okay,
but
so
I was understanding that was going to go forward.
Okay, so there still is a plan to use that committee of the whole meeting to discuss the what ultimately I assume will contribute towards the job description or the position description, and then that group that's being created will actually that's being created through this presidential order will actually create the position description based on that discussion that evening. Is that?
It will be based on that discussion, and it will be based on input from the CCEC.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman McKinney, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make a couple of points. And number one, when my colleague questioned who was appointed to this committee and why no one from the implementation task force was appointed, I want to say that it is the president's prerogative to appoint those who she chooses to appoint. And secondly, the task force has a huge job in going through TFOG, and so that crossover and interaction, I am certainly glad that she did separate those two. And the third thing that I wanted to bring out is that it is the discussion that will be generated by this task force that will result in a final report of recommendation that will come to the committee as a whole. That's my understanding, but I did want to make sure I went on record in saying is that in past instances, the president had the authority to appoint whom that he or she wanted to appoint for a specific committee. So this is not out of line with what has been done in the past. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alder McKinney. We will move on to item 6. These are all referral. Alder Foster, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess not to belabor it, but I guess especially after Alder McKinney's comments, it sounded like she was thinking that the task force would inform the committee of the whole discussion. I think you had said sort of the opposite. I guess I'm still looking for a little bit better understanding. I thought I had clarity from the last special CCEC meeting on this topic, and my understanding then was that we were going to, with the help of organizational development, 1, do a survey ahead of, and then 2, a committee of the whole discussion around a review of the chief of staff position, including a review of the other duties that come out of the support staff in the council office, and including the new duties that were assigned in the resolution that was adopted related to the admin support team, as well as the recommendations around resident engagement. And sort of bringing all those things together to understand what of those duties are we wanting to move forward, and how do we want to organize those? How would they fall within the chief of staff? How would other duties fall somewhere else? And that, I mean, that was my understanding following the last meeting. I'm not clear right now what the work group is going to do, what we're intending to do at the committee of the whole discussion, And in particular, related to the TFOG's implementation, particularly around the admin support and the resident engagement components, we had decided to sort of not work on those things since we were under the understanding that they would be taken up as part of this committee of the whole discussion. And so now I'm left still, I guess, scratching my head as to how are these things going to be treated together versus separately.
Well, I think that if I heard you correctly, that is a long list that you just gave. So I will say this. I will work with the chair of the implementation committee, and we will come up with an agenda for the 28th. And I know you guys are going to be meeting before that, so I will work with the chair. Alder McKinney.
Which chair? Sorry.
I believe that Alder Furman is the chair of the implementation committee for TFOG. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay. That chair.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Alder McKinney.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. That was from the input before. But since you did call on me, this discussion is somewhat premature because the task force has not met and they've not formed any recommendations. And so we don't know what the body would be bringing back to. And so for a sense of efficiency, to have this body, this committee meet and really go over and succinctly look at what those recommendations so that you'll have a document to come for the committee of the whole. We want to get through this. And so Harper said that it's 3 to 6 months before that's finalized. We don't know what the final decision will be, but certainly I am very confident that the chair of the of this committee will be very succinct, and we will be bringing back something that can be thoroughly looked at during the committee of the whole. And so this is a conversation that seems somewhat premature because the body has not even met and done their deliberation. So I'm a little bit confused as why we're having this conversation in the beginning when the president has already made her choice. And so I'd like for us to move on.
We will be moving on, and actually the work group is going to be submitting their report by February 23rd. So we will move on, and hopefully the work group can meet rather soon. And then we would have more to discuss, obviously. I almost called you an attorney, but Alder Foster.
Thank you. I won't belabor this too much, but to answer the last question, the reason that I'm raising these questions is that the TFOG's implementation body is charged with implementing the recommendations from the TFOG's report. And 2 broad categories of those recommendations relate to the chief of staff position or the council staff office. And so we had put work on those on hold. The members of that had prepared one alternative, actually 2 different alternatives via the budget session that were not approved. And following that, we talked about what the next steps would be because we do not believe that there was a final decision on those recommendations. And so our job is to carry those out and to get final decisions on those recommendations. And based on the conversations at CCC, we were planning to not have parallel conversations on those 2 items or those 2 categories of recommendations, assuming they would be covered in this work around the chief of staff position review. And so the reason I'm asking for clarification is that we need to understand if we need to go back and start working on those anew, or if they will be addressed by this work group or via the committee of the whole. And it sounds like President Carter, you'll be working with the chair from Chief Fog's implementation. So I'm assuming that you two will be able to talk through those issues. I just wanted to clarify why I'm bringing this up and why I'm asking these questions.
Thank you very much. We will move on to referrals and item 6, Legistar 62813. This is Syed, can you talk to this? Are you on that committee?
I am not on that committee. I apologize. I don't know.
Where is...
Alder Carter, we do have a presentation by Brian Grady from Planning.
Oh, is Brian here? I didn't see his name on the list. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, President Carter. And
Sorry, Brian, I didn't see your name.
No problem. Good evening, everyone. And so here with some lead time to talk about the upcoming redistricting process for the city. Do this every 10 years after the decennial census data is made available. And so here, looking to create the committee, or at least the shell of the committee that will do this work and recommend new ward and aldermanic boundaries to the Common Council. Overall, on the resolution, which is linked in Legistar here, including Legistar, we're proposing to follow the same structure of the committee that was used back in 2011. It'd be 4 alders, 3 residents. The mayor appoints the members, but for the 4 alder positions, it would be based on a recommendation by the council president after consultation with the CCEC. And so just wanted to get this started so that we can start the process of creating this committee. May have heard that the census had a delay in terms of when that wrapped up. That will delay when the data is available. So we're kind of in an unknown position of when the process will actually take place. But 10 years ago, the census data was available in about mid-March, and the committee then did their work they ramped up a little before the data was available. So they worked from about mid-February until about September or so. So I can give a brief presentation with just some background, some fundamentals of the redistricting process. I would say feel free to jump in with questions along the way or after, whatever you all prefer. But just wanted to kind of get this started so that we can form the committee over the next few months here. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. So I've got just 9 slides. Just take maybe 5 minutes of time or so. But overall, here's what we're accomplishing with redistricting. This is for the city of Madison. This is the process of redrawing our wards and aldermanic districts. The wards are the building blocks for aldermanic districts, also county supervisor districts, state level elected officials as well, state assembly and senate districts. We're going to be adjusting the boundaries based on population changes that took place in the 2010 and 2020 census. The overall goal of this process is to equalize the population within each district. So we have a little more equal representation. Basically, one person, one vote is the idea there, the principle there. This process will take place at the city, county, and state level. The city and county process will be happening in a very similar time frame. I want to note that there's at this link, this is attached to the Legistar item here. At this link here, there's some great state resources with more details on local redistricting. And so what we'll have in the next several months, again, 10 years ago was mid-March, maybe it's going to be in April or May when we'll get the data, the detailed census data for fine-grained geographies in our city. We'll have a map, we'll have data, we'll be able to produce a map like this, which we had from 2011. This map shows in dark gray all the aldermanic districts that were above the target population. So we had 20 districts. We're trying to equalize those out. Our main goal was to have each district have about 11,000 residents in them. Those in dark gray had more than that target population. Those in light gray had less than that target population. So our goal was to, again, equalize this out. Districts that had more population would have to shed some territory, shed some population, basically. This next map, again, this is all from 10 years ago. 10 years ago data shows the wards, same thing. Wards that are in pink here are above the state mandated threshold of 4,000 people. Those had more residents. Those are in blue were below the threshold of 1,000. A lot of this is just happens from annexations that take place that would create a ward for. And so here we need to equalize our wards as well.
Excuse me, Brian. Sorry for interrupting. Can you zoom in a little more? It's hard for me to see, if you don't mind. Sorry for
apologies.
Yeah, thanks.
There's a lot. These maps are a lot on there. So all this map right here just shows the ward number, and then the population is in the black text there. So pink, it's below the threshold. Pink above the threshold, blue below. And one beneficial part of the redistricting process is we can go through and kind of clean up our map of wards. We create wards with annexations over the decade. We can go through and clean that up and remove a lot of wards, which is great for the clerk's office and administering elections a little more efficiently. We can kind of anticipate where the population change will be. I think what we'll find with the 2020 data is our growth has been a little more better distributed, evenly distributed across our city the last 10 years than was the previous decade. This map, although not perfect, shows approved units from 06 to 2019. This kind of shows where the population growth was. The advantage of having more growth in more parts of the city is the geographies of our aldermanic districts will not need to change too much. They won't be snapping to different kind of locations as much. That'll be, I think, a helpful thing this time around. Once we have the data, once it's published, we do have to move very quickly. This process moves very fast, set forth by state law with different timeframes. So this basically shows when the data is released, the county then has 60 days to adopt a preliminary county supervisory district plan. Basically what this is it's kind of like an outline or a sketch of how they would arrange their supervisory districts. We take that into consideration, us and other jurisdictions take that into consideration when we create our wards. We'll be working hand in hand with the county, but our wards are the building blocks for our aldermanic districts. And so even after you're getting close to 3-month time frame in this process, 3-4 months in, we're going to have a good idea of what our wards would look like potentially in our aldermanic district. So it moves very quick. We need to hit these deadlines, but we will certainly do that. And then after the wards are created, then officially the county can create their supervisory districts. We can create our aldermanic districts. But again, once we're creating our wards, we're going to have a pretty good sense of where we're going in terms of our aldermanic districts. We need to hit that equalized population. That's kind of the main premise here. So it moves quick. This was the committee back in 2011. We had 4 alders, 3 residents. We will, as we did 10 years ago, we'll make sure that we update the council at the same time. So if we produce a draft map, a staff recommendation of a map based on the committee feedback, we'll release it to the entire council at the same time so everyone has all the same information. This committee will probably meet every week initially, every couple of weeks after that, for a few months. This committee will meet a lot, very compressed schedule. And then overall, what we're asking the committee to do is review and update some written criteria to guide their work in creating the wards and districts. And then again, create that ward plan. Along with that, we'll work with the clerk's office to also suggest polling places that will go for each ward. And then also make that aldermanic district plan. 10 years ago, I think we version 14 or 15 or so was the one that got adopted. So there'll be some revisions along the way and some iterations. And then on those written criteria, the top 5 above the dash line, these are all called for in state law. By state law, we got to equalize the population. Aldermanic districts must be comprised of contiguous wards. We can't have bits and pieces of geography in an aldermanic district. We want to make them compact. This is the kind of principle. We want shapes more like a square or a rectangle and not elongated geographies. We want to enhance participation of diverse residents. And so this could be residents of different people of color, ethnicity, or even language. Language spoken can be a constituency, basically. We want to make sure that we're enhancing participation of these residents and in electing a person, representative of their choice. I will note that through the Voting Rights Act, we are required as a city, basically, we can get into the details of this through this process later on down the road, but what we did create in 2011 was a district that actually included a majority of the residents that were people of color. And so if you can create that, you do that. We did that, and we'll look to do that again in this next process. And then also communities of interest are just things that bring people together, kind of an affiliation. So we looked at neighborhood associations, keeping them within one aldermanic district or one ward. We look at school attendance areas, other things, again, would kind of bring people together, kind of a common identity. And then the two other items that we added, not included in state laws, we're going to use major roads, boundaries, physical barriers of boundaries. And we've also looked to increase the number of districts exposed to future growth. And so if I'll go to the next map, it's kind of been a longstanding a goal of ours to, for example, on the edge where we have a lot of growth on the east and west sides, we'd like to have 3 aldermanic districts absorb that growth over the decade. Same thing on the west side, so that one district is not taking all of the growth of a certain part of our city. And so we have 3 that are exposed to that growth that could also come into play with the town of Madison coming in, those 5,000 or so residents coming in 2022. We may look to do the same thing, balancing that desire against the other criteria we have. But rather than having one district take on all 5,000, that could be spread across multiple districts potentially. So this was a final map that we came up with, which you see here. I'll zoom in again. Basically, our target population was 11,660 back then. And so you'll see that these numbers are all within what we use as a city, at least back then. We wanted to be within a 3% deviation. So 11,660 plus or minus 3% was our basically range we wanted to hit. And all these districts are within that range. The change is not significant, and that's good. Incremental change in these districts is kind of a good thing. But again, we'll look to have each one be more equalized in population. And with that, any additional questions that the committee might have?
So just a general question to start it off. When will this go into effect? Oh, Alder Foster, go ahead. I didn't see your hand.
Sure, thank you. Brian, my question was just around kind of the timing, and on the sort of alder membership side, obviously this crosses terms. I think the same thing happened 10 years ago. We chatted a little bit about this, and I think in that case there was no turnover of the members there. I was just reflecting on the fact that the census results are behind schedule at this point. We're not exactly sure when they're going to get published. I guess my questions were just around, to what degree does that need to be taken into consideration in terms of selecting membership? It seems like it would be to have some alders start for a couple months and then have to. It seems like it would be very disruptive. So, do you have any thoughts on that or recommendations about how we approach that question? And again, also, would it be possible to hold off on beginning the work until April in order to not have to deal with that? I guess all those questions combined. Yeah,
so I think as we chatted, Alder Foster, I think we could go both ways. And so 10 years ago, the committee did start meeting, and it was like mid-late February as we started to ramp up before the data was available. And so that committee did start meeting mid-late February. It is likely, with the census ending a couple of months after when it was supposed to, it's likely that rather than get the data mid-March, maybe we'll get it mid-May. And so if you all would like to create the committee, it'd be nice to maybe get the 3 resident spots determined for who those folks might be, so we can get those people on board. But if we want to hold off on making those alder appointments till after the April election, that could be fine. I know 10 years ago, I think the idea was at least wait until the filing deadline until we would know who was running again on the council. So we did that. But if you want to hold off on making those alder appointments, knowing that you can make those from the floor at a council meeting, that would probably be okay. We would just want to make sure we get those 3 residents on board, get their forms filled out. And then if that data if that data comes earlier than we think it might come, if it comes in March, early April, we just need to act and add those alders ASAP, basically, to the committee.
Good.
So it's kind of, just overall, could see some advantages to holding off, but then if the day is available, then we're, a little more reactive, but you could go either way on that.
But either way, getting this resolution adopted and starting to work and identifying and getting the resident members appointed either way, and then making a decision on the alder appointments. That makes sense. Thanks.
And Brian, so the timing of after it's filed, when does it go into effect?
Sure. There's actually some memos from on Legistar from 2011, from last time. It was a major topic. Overall, generally, it is as soon as the council adopts the ordinance creating the Aldermanic districts, it goes into effect. Because the whole idea is to equalize the population. Right now, we have some people that have a more diluted vote, basically. Some people have more political power than others. And so as soon as it's adopted, that goes into effect. And there's going to be only one set of wards and Aldermanic districts. This gets very complicated. There are some memos from Mike May from 10 years ago, but that is my basic understanding of when they go into effect.
Okay, thank you. So our recommendation needs to go to the Common Council tonight. Can we have a motion? Oh, Alder Martin.
Thank you. I will be quick. I know I've already had quite a few constituents asking about the redistricting process. And Brian, I was wondering if there's going to be some kind of public-facing kind of explainer that will be going up about the process. I know this isn't specifically related to the committee, but I think if we can get that information up as soon as possible, it'll be easier for us to get a wider variety of applicants to serve on the committee.
Yeah, we can. We had a website 10 years ago, and we'll certainly do the same thing. And so we can start working on getting that up and running, a web page that people could reference.
And would you be willing to send this presentation? I was just looking up the local redistricting thing that you had put on as a link, and I can't find it just with my own Google foo. So I would love to see that, at least the link, but definitely, if possible, the presentation as well.
I can send it to you, Barvina.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Any other questions? So again, we do need Alder Bedard.
I just want to make a motion to recommend adoption.
Second.
And do we have a second?
Second.
So it's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any objection? Alder Foster.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to raise that point for my last question. I don't know if it's worth adding a recommendation in this or what, and I don't have a strong preference personally, but I think either recommending selecting alders that are expected to be in the next term, or holding on appointing alders until the organizational meeting in April. To me, it feels like selecting alders that may not be serving another term would be a bad idea. So I don't know if it's worth including that in the recommendation, but I think it's worth considering.
Thank you, Alder Bedard.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know that I would want to add language to it, but I do think it's something certainly that needs to be really thought through and taken into consideration. I would just voice that my preference would be wait until a new council is sworn in and elected, because I don't see how it's a good process to just appoint people because they just happen to not have an opponent. So it just doesn't seem like a good democratic a good democratic process to follow, honestly. So I would, the reason that I don't feel strongly about adding language is because my reading of the leaves is that we probably are not going to get anything until from the results of the census, the data, until April. I may be proven wrong, and Brian will call me and tell me that, I'm sure. But I think it's worth living is as is right now, and reconsidering it if we do get the data any sooner than that. And then the last comment I want to make is that I was actually around for the last redistricting process, and it really worked really well and very effectively and efficiently, and had a lot of involvement from community members who participated. Specifically, the committee really was very focused on reaching out to communities of color, and there was really good participation and really kind of a process in which some of the boundaries were discussed over and over to really take into account that feedback. So I'm hoping that some of the learnings from that process that were really effective can really be applied. And I'm glad to see that Brian who was there then, is going to also oversee this process.
Thank you. I think it's always nice to have the historical reference when we come to things like this for redistricting. So I'm glad Brian's on board again. I also think that it makes sense based on the data that we get and when we get it, to start with the residents to be appointed. Alder Foster and then Alder McKinney.
Thank you. And yeah, I think I agree, Alder Bedard. It feels better to choose from a full complement of alders. I guess my only thought on that is if would we want to consider updating the language around the selection, since if as Brian said, we could make appointments. We'll know who the alders for second term would be ahead of that organizational meeting. The mayor will be making appointments for all the rest of the BCCs at that time, but we won't have a council president decided yet. So is there any advantage to not requiring the additional layer of having a council president kind of create the options from which the mayor selects from? Or maybe there's a way to get around that, or maybe it's not. Another 2 weeks is not a big deal, but it seems like if we are waiting to start in April, which I think makes sense, maybe we should consider just updating the selection language and just having it be appointments by the mayor confirmed by the council in order to avoid that issue.
Alder McKinney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Alder Bedard because if there's going to be a shift, or not if, there will be a shift in the elected alders that's coming up, and even putting language around it. And I understand Alder Bedard's hesitancy in putting language around it. If we're going to allow the new alders coming in and those appointments being made, there's going to be a new president and a new executive committee, I'm sure. And I would really hesitate in even putting the language around it. And so let it be clean, let it be crisp, and not have us to create the structure for the this election process when we might not even, we're not going to be on the council to make those decisions. So is it possible, is there a motion that has been already put on the floor that we, what would be the proper, and I guess this will come from attorney, is that what would be how should we handle this process at this point? Because it is on the agenda that we make recommendations to the Common Council out of the executive committee. And if we're not going to do that, what will we be presenting?
Attorney Strange.
I don't know if Mike had any thoughts on this or not, but if the in terms of the recommendation to the council tonight, if your recommendation is to you're saying your recommendation would be to recommend approval of the resolution to create the committee, but hold off on appointing the alders until after the election. I think that then that's the recommendation that you would make to the council tonight, so that is clear going forward, that the alders won't be appointed until after the election, and you wouldn't be recommending any particular alders tonight.
So I would like to make that recommendation as crafted by Attorney Strange. If I could have a second to that.
Second.
And I think we've already spoken to the reasons why that is a wise and a very good decision, because we want it crisp, we want it clean. And in this way, we are passing it off to the new elected alders and in the consideration by the mayor when those appointments will be made. Thank you.
Alder Bedard.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify. So was that an additional motion, or is it a friendly motion to the motion to adopt with a recommendation that
That's what I was going to ask.
But the alders are not appointed until the new council is sworn in, or whatever that language was.
Alder McKinney?
Yes.
Was that a friendly?
I don't remember who made the original.
Who made the original? I didn't realize that the original motion had been made.
Yes, it had.
Who made that? So I can ask.
The original motion to approve was made by Alder Bedard and seconded by Alder Abbas. And I am taking it that this is either a friendly amendment or an amendment moved by Harrington McKinney and seconded by Abbas.
It's a friendly. Alder Bedard, would you accept it as a friendly amendment?
Very friendly, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So if everyone is unanimous, Alder McKinney, your hand is up again.
If either is down, no.
Okay.
So I just want to, Alder Carter, I just want to make sure. So you're recommending adoption of this resolution as amended, with language in there that appointments for the alders wouldn't be made until after April 6th. Is that correct?
Yes. Alder appointments will be made after April 6th.
Okay.
Okay. I would like to record a unanimous vote. If anyone wants to vote oppose, please raise your hand, wave in the camera, because I'm not seeing any raised hands really. Okay, I will record this as a unanimous vote to approve with recommendations that alder appointments will be made after April 6th. Thank you. We're going to move on to, and we're going to have to speed it up. Move on to item 7, Legistar 62930. And Lisa, who's going to speak on this one? Do you have anyone?
I would assume Assistant City Attorney John Strange.
Okay, Attorney Strange.
Yeah, I'll give a brief introduction. I know that we're tight on time, and just as a reminder, we did have the Committee of the Whole meeting on October 8th regarding this topic, and it springs out of the Task Force on Government Structures recommendations to reduce the size of the council, to transition to a full-time 10-member council, and to increase aldermanic terms to 4 years instead of 2. And what we discussed at the Committee of the Whole meeting is that those two aspects of the government structure are contained in Madison General Ordinance 3.01, which is a charter ordinance that was adopted by the electorate in 1987. And there's a state statute that says that if you want to change an ordinance that was adopted by the electorate has to change it. And so if the city is going to implement the recommendation of the task force to make those changes, it would need to go to the electorate at a spring election. In order to do that at the spring election, this coming spring election, we need to get notice to the clerk by January 26th. So the two documents that you have to consider tonight, one is the main document is a substitute resolution that authorizes an advisory referendum, which would ask the questions of the electorate, but not create a charter ordinance, not bind the city. It would be basically gathering information in order to potentially use to go out for a binding referendum at some other spring election, perhaps spring of 2022. The alternate resolution that's before you is a resolution that would authorize a binding referendum. And what that would do is put the questions to the public, and if approved, that would be the charter ordinance that changes Madison General Ordinance 3.01 to reduce the size of the council to 10 members and increase aldermanic terms to 4. So for purposes of this meeting and the council meeting tonight, you sort of have three choices. One is to advance the advisory referendum, which would be an fact gathering, information gathering referendum for the voters this spring. Second would be to advance the binding referendum resolution. And then of course the third is to not advance either of them. There's nothing that requires you to go to referendum this spring at all. So those are sort of, even though there's two documents, there is a third option. And I don't want to take up too much time. I imagine I'll probably have to do this again, maybe a little bit more length at the council meeting. Since you have less time, I'll just answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Alder McKinney?
So, Attorney Strange, I do have a question. The two, the advisory and the binding, the two documents, is there a possibility? So you gave three options, to approve either one of the amendment or neither. Is there a consideration of pulling, for instance, moving the election of a alder from a 2-year term to a 4-year term? What would be the process of pulling that out? Or is that a possibility? Do we have to consider the advisory, the binding, or nothing?
Are you asking, could you approve a resolution that puts forth a referendum that does not include the length of the term, that only includes the length of the term?
Yes.
And leaves out, okay. So
I'm just asking.
Yeah, so for example, if this body or the council wanted to only go to binding referendum on the question of aldermanic terms, then what it would want to do is move to approve the binding referendum resolution and amend it to only ask the question on the aldermanic terms and to leave off the question about the 10 members. If that resolution was passed as amended, then the referendum in the spring of this April, would only ask the question, should aldermanic terms be 4 years instead of 2?
Okay, thank you.
Now, theoretically, you could do the same thing with the advisory referendum too. I mean, it would be a matter of amending the resolution before you approve it.
And so a follow-up question is that we would have to resolve the advisory and also the binding before we could even move into a fourth option. So we'd have to handle the first three before we can move into the recommendation of a 4-year term.
No, the 4-year term is included in both resolutions. And so all you would need to do is, as you're discussing the issue, someone would make a motion to do something. Let's say that something is to approve the substitute resolution, which is the advisory one, but you only want to ask the question about the terms. You would just make a motion to approve with an amendment as ever you wish. And so that would be your action on that particular item. So if you're thinking of the 3 things that I talked about, you would basically still be doing one of those 3 things, and you would be amending one. Does that make sense? It's not really a 4th option. It's just an amendment of one of the other options.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Bedard. Alder Bedard.
Sorry, I was talking with my mute on. I would like to make a motion for adoption of the substitute.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Do we have discussion?
If it's okay, I mean, I'll engage into the discussion. So the substitute, just to clarify, removed some of the original mentions of TFOGs in the language of the referendum question, which I thought was necessary because I honestly don't think the members of the public who are going to be voting on the referendum really would know particularly who TFOGs is. And I think it was just really confusing and also made it a little bit like a leading question. It also clarified the language around what the salary would look like by providing a range to that salary, because the discussion at TFOGs, that number that's been kind of mentioned, the 67,000, was really based on a specific calculation around AMI that TFOGs had at that time. So it keeps it as a non-binding referendum. I certainly do understand the people who are saying, like, if we're going to do it, let's just do a binding referendum. But I do also feel like between now and April, there is not enough time to really do a kind of full-on information sharing with the community about all of these aspects of these decisions and a binding and moving into a binding referendum. I do think a non-binding referendum will give the next council, of which I will not be part of, the next council an ability to get a true sense of what the community's feelings are about these issues, and be able to engage in deeper discussion about these options. And I think it is important to have all the questions if we're going to have it, because again, if we're going to go through a process, it's good to know what the members of the public, as they're voting, opinions are about each aspects of these changes. And lastly, I would say, since we heard from the clerk's office that the cost is minimal, that made me feel a lot better too about the non-binding resolution. Like, we're not doing something that's really like costly and going to add cost to then do again a binding resolution maybe a year down the road.
Thank you. Alder McKinney.
I wanted to speak to, and thank you, Alder Bedard, for mentioning the cost. And so I definitely looked at the cost. I had asked the clerk's office just to give me a rundown of what some cost is. So the document that I have is the percentage of turnout in the spring election from 2013 to 2020. And from April 2013, the spring turnout was 23.9%. 2014, it was 19.5. And then in April 2020, it was 56.3. But the cost of the of those documents varied very considerably. And the clerk said that she was not able to give a determination of what the referendum would cost. It would be based upon the size of the paper and all of that. And so for that reason, I was not supporting the advisory referendum. The other reason that I was not supporting the advisory, I would like for you to consider not to support the advisory referendum, is that the chair, the vice chair, and member of the task force were not supportive of the advisory referendum, and that's included in the documents that's with this resolution. And it came out of the TFOG's task force, of the members of the TFOG task force made these recommendations. And it concerned me that when after 2 years of a very robust discussion about TFOGs, and also over 90 public meetings that was in the report, and also the community engagement. There were resident navigators that went out and completed surveys. And so, a lot went into the determination and creation of this document. And when reading the document, it was not definitive in terms of, reducing the size of the council or the cost or any of those. And so from now until April, yes, there is not sufficient time to really do what's called a robust discussion. If they didn't do a robust discussion in 2 years, there's no way that we could expect to have that quality of an engagement from February, March, and April. And so those things are concerning me, and I would ask the alders to really, consider that. The only piece that's in there that seemed to be not as controversial is changing the 2-year term to a 4-year term. The cost of having just an advisory, I don't see what the cost, I don't see the benefit of paying for an advisory resolution, a referendum that really is not going to really make any definitive decisions at all. We do need the time to have a robust conversation within the community, because we're getting emails. They don't know what TFOGs is. They're concerned about so many pieces of the very complex referendum, the advisory one. And so I'm searching for words, because I've totally lost where I want to be within this, but I'm not going to, I don't see supporting having an advisory referendum and at this point.
Okay, thank you. Alder Skidmore, then Alder Badar, and we're getting close to the cutoff time, just to let you know. Alder Skidmore?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I share Alder McKinney's concerns, and having been a member of TFOG and sitting through 2 years plus or minus of meetings, of having very few people attend and trying to get engagement, citizen engagement, there was a certain frustration in that. We did generate some information that is pulled together in the report. I think the chair of the TFOG did a great job of pulling it together, and the members worked hard, but I really don't see the benefit to an advisory referendum. I don't know what more we're going to get from that we didn't get in 2 years of meetings and trying to draw people out. I do not support an advisory referendum, but I do support the binding referendum. There should be sufficient time to get the message out for the information that we've already prepared. I don't think that we're in a position to continue the work of TFOG. The report has been written and accepted. I think it's time to move on to recommendations, which was my understanding of the purpose of this work group, and that should come to a binding referendum in the spring. Another key member of the committee is available to answer questions, and I wonder if it'd be in order if I could ask John Rothschild his opinion on this. So I'll yield.
Oh, just one. Oh, Lisa, are you there?
Yes. What's up?
Okay, what is the protocol for that? Because we did have public comment.
Well, if he's here available to answer questions, is what John registered for.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay. We have about 5 minutes, and I do want to do a roll call vote. Alder Bedard.
Just a point of order, President Carter. I mean, we have 5 minutes left, so I don't know that we have the time to engage in further debate and discussion right now. I'm hoping that Mr. Rothschild will join us at the council meeting where we will have an extended discussion of this. So I don't know.
Okay.
One possibility is to leave it right now with no recommendation from the CCC, since it's just, I don't feel like we're able to have a full debate on it right now, or force a vote. It's up to you, President Carter. But.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Alder Bedard. Alder McKinney, real quick.
Okay.
And Alder Skidmore after you. And real quick.
Okay, real quick. So Alder Bedard's recommendation is that this body does not have a recommendation to the Common Council. There will be a fuller discussion at the Common Council. So we will be repeating everything that we're talking about today or tonight. And so I move that the recommendation of the executive committee is to not make a recommendation of either one of the advisory or the binding resolution.
Thank you. And do I have a second to that motion?
A second.
It's been moved and properly second. I would like to register a unanimous vote. If anyone objects, please raise your hand to the camera so I can see you. There is no objection. I will record a unanimous vote of no recommendation. Thank you. We have 3 minutes left. Item 8, the person that, Lisa, can you remind me who was going to do the presentation for that is unavailable?
Well, Eric Olson was going to be available during the discussion on this, but I don't think we're going to be able to discuss it fully. Alder Foster can chime in on that.
Alder Foster, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. I see you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take it up, you can. It does. I mean, it doesn't. It's not urgent. It would probably make sense to refer it. But
can we refer it to the next CCEC meeting?
That works for me.
Okay, that's what we'll do. We don't need a motion, do we, Lisa?
I would just have somebody make a motion. It would be great.
Alder Foster, can you make a motion on that?
Oh, he's not a member of CCEC.
Oh, sorry about that.
Alder Bedard, is there a second?
I'll second. This is Mike.
All right.
Hi, Mike. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed, raise your hands at the camera. I will record a unanimous vote to refer item 8 to the next CCEC meeting. Item 9.
Happy to move referral if people would like to discuss more, but we can also move adoption. What's the will of the body?
Does any of the, okay, Alder Bedard?
I would prefer referral.
I second on referral.
Move referral.
Is that a motion, Alder Bedard?
I'll move referral. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll second? It's been moved to second to refer item 9 to the next CCEC meeting. I would like to record a unanimous vote, but for those that oppose, raise your hand to the camera. There's no opposition to this, so we will refer it as a unanimous vote to the next meeting. With 1 minute to spare, Stefan. No evil emails from you. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll see you at 6:30.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, we do need that, don't we? Alder Abbas?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I would like to record a unanimous vote to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.